Hey there, Bo and Alana. So what does it look like to be a composer? Well, right now I'm in a cafe working on my computer. I'm actually not composing right now, I'm doing business work, but I like business work. Who says that? Anyway, financial stuff. Hello there, Alana. Oh my, look at that. Fun. So today we're going to go over, I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to go over the things that we've learned so far. And we're going to try and get through these things relatively quickly, okay? So buckle down your seatbelt. We're going to go through these things just to refresh your memory so that we can move on and keep moving forward. And also so that down the road, you can start applying these things to your, wait for it, dancing love. Now, apparently we only have a few lessons left. So, but this is just enough. It's really just enough. And I think it's good because we're talking about rhythm. And it'll be just enough to help you to understand dance a little bit better, because dance is all about music and rhythm. And even where you don't have rhythm, you still have counts. You still have division of movement, and you're going to be counting those things according to the music that you're listening to. So let's jump right in. We're going to start with our clefs, reviewing our clefs. So here we have our, when you see this, what do you say? Oh geez, I'm in trouble, right? Trouble, or treble clef. Oh geez, it tells us where the G is, right? And when we draw this clef on the staff, it looks like this. Remember, the staff is our 5 lines. When we draw it on here, it looks like that. And this part here circles around that line, which is G. This line here, okay? Now remember, when we're ascending, we go in alphabetical order. When we're descending, going down, we are going backwards. We are going through the alphabet backwards, okay? So let's go in alphabetical order. This is G, going up and fill in the spaces here. This is G, this is A, line is B, space is C, line is D, space is E. After E comes F, right? And then we can continue the staff by adding ledger lines, right? The small little lines that continue the staff in either directions. So this space would, after F, would be G, then the line would be, the ledger line would be A, the space above it would be B, and we can continue on forever, right? And now let's go descending, which is down. So if this is G, and the space beneath it is F, the line is E, the space is D, add a ledger line, that's C. Below the ledger line is B, okay? So there's that. We got our treble clef. We've also got our C clef, which, if you remember, it's called C clef because glasses help you to see. It looks like a pair of glasses, right? C clef tells you where the C is, and that C is located right between this lovely diamond shape here, right at the point, right? There's always going to be a line there, okay? It's right in between this space. Okay, now there's 2 kinds of C clef that we learned. The first one is when it appears starting on the second line of the staff. Okay, right here, for example. Still telling us where the C is, which is here. But in this case, because of its positioning starting on the second line, it's known as... Sorry, no, treble clef. It's known as tenor clef. Right? Tenor clef. Okay? Now if this is C, let's fill this out. Ascending first, which means alphabetical order. So this is C, then we got D, E, F at a ledger line, G. Descending now, reverse, B, A, G, before G is F, E, D, C, right? And we continue with the ledger line, and that's B right there, okay? So that was our C clef as a tenor clef, but we can also have it start all the way down there. Remember, all the way, all. This is known as what clef? Known as alto clef. Alto clef. Alto clef. Okay. It starts all the way down there. This is still a C. Let's fill it out descending first. So C, before C comes B. Then we've got A. Then we've got G. A. Then we've got F. Then we've got E. Then we've got D on the ledger line. Now ascending. After C comes D, then E, then F, then G, then A. Ledger line would be B, right? So those are our two C clefs. We've got alto clef, which is all the way down there, and tenor clef, which starts on the second line, but both of them tell us where the C is because they're using C clef, right? And last but not least, we have this clef, which, as we said, is basically a funny frog. Ribbit. Right. Funny frog. And it's basically a funny frog. So bass clef, right? And the FF, funny frog, it tells us where the F is located at. Oh, let's draw on our lines first. Of our staff, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines is a staff. We draw on our F clef, which starts on the second line there. Okay? And our F is right between this triangle here. There's our F there. We can draw on a note if we want to. Okay? And let's fill this in descending first. So going backwards, before F comes E. Before E is D, then C, then B, then A, then G. Remember, we start up with G again. F, before F is E on the ledger line, right? And now ascending, let's finish it. Uh-oh, screen moved. F, after F comes G, then A, then B. On the ledger line would be C, right? So we've got those three clefs now. And now remember, when we have the bass clef together with the treble clef above it on two separate staves, joined together by a little squiggly line, okay? This is known collectively as my staff, or the grand staff. And this is what's used most often, most commonly, in piano music. It's known as the grand staff, and it's read together, okay? So there's that. Now, let's talk about time. So, the beat is the basic pulse in a piece of music, as you remember. Basic pulse in a piece of music. BPPM. I think that stands for something else, but still, the basic pulse in a piece of music, right? And then we have a measure, which is a group of beats. The measure is notated or written down, symbolized by these two lines here, which appear on the staff vertically, right? Upright. And these are known as bar lines. And the space between them here is a measure. right? Uh-oh. Bar lines. Now there can be any number of beats within a measure, and they can be represented by any of the following note values. A whole note, a half note. Uh-oh. That's fine, I'll just color it in. A quarter note, and an eighth note, okay? But also can be noted by the dotted values, right? A dotted whole note. I'm going to draw this a little smaller so it's easier to draw. A dotted half note. A dotted quarter note. And a dotted eighth note. Remember, for our notes, we have the note stem, or the note head. This is known as the note head. Plus the stem, which is the line. And then the flag here, which occurs in smaller values, okay? The note flag. That'll become more important later. But any of those could represent our beat, okay? Now it depends on whether our time or our meter, which is kind of the pattern of beats, okay? The pattern of beats. Whether our meter is simple, which actually should be on this side, sorry. Simple or compound. Simple means it's divisible by 2. The beat is divisible by 2. Compound means the beat's divisible by 3. So if you remember in our 4x4 exercise, we started with dividing the beat by nothing, then dividing it by 2, then dividing it by 3, and then finally dividing it by 4, right? Now when we divided it, we went like this. That was dividing it by 1. Then we moved on to dividing it by 2. Then we moved on to dividing it by 3. And then we moved on to dividing it by 4. Right? Now, that is counted in the following ways, and we talked about this before. But first, when we don't divide the beat's just counted with a number, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. But when we divide it by 2, it's counted as 1 and. That's the symbol for and. 2 and 3 and 4 and. When we divide it by 3, it's spoken as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and And when it's divided by 4, it's counted as 1E and 2E and just because it's easy to say. The E doesn't stand for anything. 1E and 2E and right? Because remember, we're dividing by 4. If we write that in 1, 2, 3, 4. See how there's 4 place markers there? So 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and I wrote it a little bit too big, but you get the idea. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and okay? Make sense? So now, we know that over here I said we're dividing the beat by 2, right? So if the whole note is the beat, right? Then that means that the beat can be divided by 2, which is 2 half notes, right? If the beat was a half note, then the beat division would be 2 quarter notes, because it's divisible by 2. If the beat is a quarter note, then the division would be 2 eighth notes, because an eighth note is half of a quarter, or an eighth is half of a quarter, right? So it's those two together. But over here, on this side, we're dividing the beat by 3, right? But how do we do that? We add the dot, right? And the dot tells us add the note plus half itself, right? So let's try that. We have a dotted whole note. First, we're going to have the note itself, which is a whole note. And then we're going to add half of itself. Half of a whole note is what? A half note, right? And the whole note is counted as 1, 2, 3, 4. The half note is counted as 1, 2, 3. The quarter as, the half note is counted as 1, 2. The quarter as 1. And the eighth note here is counted as either 1 or and. Oops. depending on where it lands. Because it's half and we still count, because it's half of this one and we still count it as one, it's easier to draw two and see kind of what I'm talking about. So if we had two of them, we'd count it as one and, right? But because we only have one, we just say one, and the beat ends, or the note value ends quicker than just a normal quarter note that we have over here, right? So if I just draw these in for you, remember this one's just spoken as one, not and. Well, in this case, we're just going to use one. So over here, this whole note, if we're playing a chord here, this would be counted as 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, off, right? This half note here is going to be counted as 1, 2. 1, 2, off. This quarter note is going to be counted as 1. 1, off. And then this one here, instead of being counted as having the same value as this one, it's going to be 1 off, 1 off. Because this one over here, this quarter note, is really, as we see down here, check it out, is really an eighth note plus another eighth note, right? Which we know is counted as 1 and, like I've written over here, right? 1 and. But since we only have 1 and not 2, it just sounds like 1, but a shorter one. 1 off, 1 off, okay? Now over here, on this side, let's go to blue. It's the note plus half itself is the dotted note, right? So this dotted whole note here is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, the whole note plus a half note, 1, 2, which makes a total of 6 counts, right? Which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, off. Okay? A dotted quarter note is going to equal 2 eighth notes, right? Because 2 eighth notes equal a quarter note, right? Plus half of itself, which is the eighth note, right? Both of these again equal this. I could have written just one of these, but I wrote 2 just to show you that it equals 3, right? Because compound means the beats divided by 3. 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, right? So this is 1 and 2 is how we'd count that. But there's no and, there's no fourth part to this, right? It's not that long. So this one gets 1 and a half counts, but we count it as 1 and 2. So this would be counted as 1 and 2 off, 1 and 2 off, 1 and 2 off, right? Just like that. So those are our note values there. I'm going to erase these, and we are going to talk about how they fit onto the staff, how we write them on the staff. So notes can go on any spot really on the staff, on either a line, a ledger line, or a space, right? Now it doesn't matter what clef you're using, okay? Oh, and we actually missed 2 clefs, didn't we? Let's do those real quick. Now there's neutral clef, which is drawn in 2 ways. So we really just missed 1, but it's drawn in 2 ways. So neutral clef can be drawn like that, or like this. And whenever you see these 2, you know it's neutral clef. And that it doesn't tell you anything about pitch, which is a note, right? It's telling you just rhythm. It's used for rhythm. Like if you were writing a drum part or anything like that, okay? But how do we draw these notes on the staff? There's a basic rule. So when the note appears on the third line, doesn't matter what clef you're on, when it appears on the third line here, the note stem, if it has a stem, so whole notes do not have a stem, right? But if it's a half note or a quarter note or an eighth note, I'm drawing the stem detached so you can see the parts, right? The stem, this part here, is going to go up or down. It can go up or down when it exists on this line, on the third line. It can go here or it can go here. Okay? So it can be facing upwards or downwards. Now when it's above this line, when it's above the line, it must go downwards. It must go downwards. The stem must face downwards. Let me draw it a little bit bigger. It looks kind of weird. What is that? It must go downwards, okay? If it's on a line or a space. No matter how high up it goes, it must go downwards, okay? Now if it's below, I'm trying to get those dots away. Go away, dots. Oh wow, I drew it in a long time ago. There we go. Now if it's below the third line, it must go up, okay? Like that. Okay, those are two eighth notes next to each other. Remember, those counted one and. Okay? It must go up. Now, when the stem goes down, remember on the middle line, start on the middle line. On the middle line, it can go up or down. When it goes down, it must appear on the left side of the note. Left side. Down goes left side. And when, like a P, right? It's a P. Okay? And when you draw it up, the stem is facing upwards, it must be on the right side. Okay? So, those are our only rules. Below the middle line, stem must go up. Above the middle line, stem must go down. Stem goes down, it goes to the left. Stem goes up, it goes to the right. So I'm just going to draw on some stuff for you just so that your eyes can see these items that we've talked about. So let's draw in our super cool staff here. Let's actually draw in our grand staff. So here's our grand staff. Remember, our grand staff uses the treble clef and our bass clef. Okay, we have a squiggle here. Actually drew that squiggle wrong. Let me redo that. First we need to have a line here. Okay, like that. And then let's put in some notes. Let's put a half note here. Let's actually. Ooh. Okay, so middle line, it can go up or down. Okay, this is a bar line. All right, and let's do a whole note down here. Whole notes are usually kind of a little bit more like eggs, like that really. They're not drawn with the same exact shape as a half note or the note heads of the other notes. So a whole note, when we go above, stems must face down. Let's do 2 1/8 notes here. Let's do 2 more. Okay, and then on this side is where we would write actually the time signature, which we learned a little bit about before, but we didn't review it today, and that's okay. Didn't want to do too much. Okay, so there's that, and this would be played like this. So this is again our G clef. This is G clef, right? Or treble clef. So this note here is G, which makes this note what? This note would be G, A, B. It would be B, right? Then C, D, G. Ooh, that's a weird G. G, A, and down here this is C, right? Because this is F clef. Looks like a funny frog, basically a funny frog. Basically, it's a bass clef, but also known as F clef because it tells us where the F is. F is right here. But this pitch here is C, right? Because F, for F is E, D, C. Right? So this together would sound like, let's see if my pedal's working. It's not, but that's okay. So this would sound like this. 1, 2, 1, and 1, and like that. 1, 2, 1, and 1, and 1, right? 1, 2, 1, and 1, and just like that. And we can also, just to remind you, we have dotted note figures, right? So let's put in a dotted note figure. Woo! Oh no! Oh no! I'm dropping my pencil. So I'm going to draw in our time signature again. So we can have a dotted note figure. So why don't we do a dotted quarter note and an eighth note. Finish it off with an eighth note over here. Remember, it's above the line, so the stem has to be facing downwards. When it's facing downwards, it faces to the left. It starts on the left. The line is on the left of the note head. In this case, this would be played like this. We got our C down here and a B in that clef. Okay? So this would be played as 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2, 1, 2, and, right? Because remember, this is and, or, 1. And we'll talk more about like the beats and other things and make more sense of that in the future. But does that make sense? Nice. Good work today. I know this has been a one-way conversation largely, but I hope this helped you to review everything. And we'll talk more about how this applies to dance in just a little bit after we get a little bit more clear about the rhythm and the time signature, which is located always on this side next to the clef, to the right of the clef. And we'll apply all these things to dance. All right, until next time, see ya. Smiley face.